everything's so optimistic, like you can sense the economy going up, that even the prostitutes are in here. It's true. I'm not even kidding. This is like unironically true. I have no idea why that is. I don't understand that. Is it like a thing where it's like, hey, I'm like the accounts intern, and I'm looking for like entertainment, I guess. I don't know. Or maybe it's the actual person. Like, man, I gotta like listen to this after or before work. I can't tell. Like, what's the setup here? I'd really like to know. But besides the point, I would check the thing. The thing thingy where like thingy wanna come thingy. That thing. Just check it out.
What the fuck are you talking about?
It's like when like a connection request is coming in. Like, what do you think about that one?
What?
The spaces thing.
About...
Yes.
Hold on, just text me what you're talking about.
Okay.
I think we should.
Bro, why is this guy so autistic? Hang on. What is this? Oh my god.
I love that.
So the question is, Ada, what do we do about this? Do we like do something, not do something? Like, I guess the doing parts is what you could, I suppose. Let's see what else is happening. Interesting. Alright, there we go.
We are back.
Yes, that we are. It's an amazing thing. Oh, I see. Yeah. Civil, bro. Really? Okay.
Just barely.
If that's what your barely civil looks like, I'd like to see the unhinged mode, please. Like, I'm just doing the superstition thing. This is like not a, I'm just sitting there, I'm thinking to myself, I want to see like thermonuclear outer, and it's like when I'm waiting for it to happen, And I'm just like egging it along just like a little bit, and I'm just waiting for there to like be enough tension to the point where you just actually lose your shit, but you're not angry enough for that yet. So it's like there's too much reason at the moment. You have to like, the way we do this is by like irony maxing.
Last time, no, I probably shouldn't say that in public, but last time I went over the theory, it did not turn out well for the person.
Right. That is correct.
Are you speaking from a distance? I can't hear you that well.
Who, me?
No, Outa.
No?
We both said me at the same time, so it was like...
Yeah, Outa, you sound really quiet.
It's a little far away.
Hold on, wait. Hold on, how's that?
Much better.
Way better.
Much better.
Okay, I see. My phone was not on voice isolation. That's why.
That makes sense.
Preston, did you watch the State of the Union?
Every minute.
Nice.
How you feel about it?
I mean, I think... How do I feel about it? The one thing that really impresses me about the team that he's put together, and like you kind of know, like when like Shriram Krishnan's on it and David Sachs is on it, like and JD Vance is on it, right? You know that these are people who all think about the future, right? Because they're all futurists. Peter Thiel, Elon, all those guys. Like their business is understanding what's going to happen in 10 years. And so I think like they understand a couple things. All of those investment announcements that we've seen. So you've seen like Apple re-onshore is going to do a $500 billion investment. TMSC is doing a $100 billion investment.
TSMC, not TMSC.
TMSC, whatever it is. It's the whatever. TSMC. Okay. So the Taiwan Semiconductor dude, like they're all moving into the United States, and I think that the most important thing that was communicated in that speech was that, right? Now, why is that important? Because at the moment, the U.S., like, my opinion about what the U.S., not that it's like a professional opinion or anything like that, I'm just some asshole with a couple of law degrees who happens to work in crypto. Like, I'm unqualified to do anything except like issue legal opinions about shit coins. So the way that I look at it, right, from my amateur perspective, is that they're trying to avoid the Thucydides trap, which is when you have a rising power and a declining power, and they're trying to avoid it by two means. One of them is that the Thucydides trap is that when a rising power and a declining power exist in the same space at the same time, they tend to conflict, and that usually results in the destruction of the declining power. And what they're trying to do is two things. One, they're trying to arrest the decline, and you can see that via all kinds of domestic means, particularly Doge, particularly the elimination of the federal bureaucracy, which I hope they roll out to the states and municipalities, because like that kind of waste, that way of doing business is dead and gone and wasteful and all the rest of it. So they're trying to revitalize the country that way. They're also trying to revitalize our industry through tariffs. But the other thing that they're trying to do is they're trying to prevent, firstly, wrap up the war in Ukraine, right, so that they can reintegrate Russia into the world and hopefully try to drive a wedge between Russia and China. And the second thing is they're trying to make Taiwan irrelevant, right? So there's a song lyric that Roger Waters wrote in Amused. It might have been Amused to Death. It might have been in Final Cut. I'm not sure which album he wrote it in, but they referred to Taiwan as a shoe factory called Taiwan, right? Taiwan's currently a chip factory called Taiwan, and if China takes it over, like that's it, right? You don't have chips for anything anymore. You don't have automobiles. You don't have computers. You don't have advanced microprocessors. You don't have graphics cards. Like it's done. China gets it all. So they're trying. There are two ways you can avoid that. One of them is you can send over drones and carrier battle groups and airplanes and all this other sort of stuff to go try to defend them, right? When the Chinese decide it's time to do the reunification. And the other one is you can say, screw it, let's just go build our own industry. We'll do a Manhattan Project style thing over here. And when China decides, okay, we're going to invade Taiwan now, we destroy the factories and we exfiltrate all of their scientists and workers and say, okay, cool, all yours. Enjoy. Like, good luck to you. Have fun. Which I think is the less confrontational option and also the one which is better for the long-term security of the United States. So, like, looking at everything that was said, right? Obviously, the stuff about woke going out the door is music to my ears. Because I kind of live in two countries, it's the UK and the US, and like the woke stuff is still going in the UK. They haven't got the memo yet that it's over, and that's all, of course, really reassuring and refreshing. But what I take from this is that the government and the people who are running it are seeing the biggest trap, the biggest opportunity for global and frankly like global scale, species scale catastrophe, and they are trying to avoid it. And that's really reassuring because like you never got that sense from the Biden administration.
Taiwan has more importance than just the Silicon Shield, though. It also has a very important position in the South China Sea.
Yeah, but like it has an important position in the South China Sea. Fair enough, right? But like from our perspective, we're thousands and thousands of miles away. And so if the Chinese decide they want to start interdicting traffic in the South China Sea, cool. We'll just go over to the Straits of Malacca. We'll go blockade them from there, right? Because they import all of their fuel. So like I don't think China controlling Taiwan is the end of the universe for the United States. And I think that if we were going to try to, think about like the supply chain consequences of trying to get in a fight.
Yeah, but look, it has a central location in both the South China Sea and the East China Sea, right? And it's really the only thing that's blocking China from basically controlling that entire region.
Yeah, but equally, if we try to waltz over there and defend it, China has like 400 times our shipbuilding capacity. They can crank out weapons and chips and guns and query how well the guns will work.
True, but firstly, the U.S.'s allies like South Korea, for example, and then the U.S. themselves actually just said they're also planning to introduce benefits to shipbuilding in the U.S. If you're using a Chinese ship, they're going to fine you $1 million per each landing in the U.S. And if you're using a U.S. ship, you get a discount.
Sure, but like that only gets you so far. So if that's the case, what you do is you go, cool, my Chinese ship is going to go dock in Mexico once the Mexico U.S. tariff situation is resolved, and then goods will just flow that way instead of so like you can subsidize shipbuilding, and I think it's good that they're doing it in order to get the industry started because we do need to have more capacity than we currently have. But the question is that capacity enough to give us like a cargo lift capacity to drag armies over to Taiwan and over to China in their backyard when Taiwan's what, like 100 miles off the coast?
Here's the thing, right? So with Taiwan, you don't also just import the people that are working at TSMC. You also have to then import the people that are working for companies that work with TSMC, right? The contractors as well that aren't necessarily employees. So you would have to bring in a lot of people into the U.S. to make them functional.
Awesome. Can they be my neighbors? Like, can I move them in next door? Can we move them in the neighborhood? I would like nothing more than like some awesome Cantonese people to fucking rock up.
They're not Cantonese.
Well, I don't know anything about China. But like, I'd like some Taiwanese to like rock up and hang out in New Haven and like transform New Haven from a dump into a thriving, chip fab with great food. I think that would be fucking fantastic. Where do I fucking sign up? Let's do it.
We're just gonna grab every single person in Taiwan and bring them over.
We're gonna grab every single person from Taiwan and bring them over. I'm gonna start wearing a trench coat. I'm gonna drive a Cybertruck and I'm gonna pretend I'm Harrison Ford in Blade Runner, and I'm gonna eat at noodle bars in the rain. Like that's what's gonna happen.
Great. It'd be the German Blade Runner guy who just like arrives and tells you, so we have the following issues and you're gonna have to come with us. It's like too much to explain, but we're gonna do it anyways. And I'm just be like, here's the information. You can't read through it, but you can read through it while you come in the car with me.
Here's what I found interesting. If they manage to revoke the CHIPS Act, that's going to hurt Intel even more. Right, Intel is completely fucked because they're the single biggest recipient of the CHIPS Act.
Please don't scroll.
Does Intel even make chips anymore? I mean,
yeah, they do. They set up their own fabs. They spent over $100 billion. Right, it's kind of failing badly right now.
Please don't.
Especially after they fired their CEO and he started posting Bible quotes all over the place.
It's like the thing that happens when your ship is going under, and the last thing you do is to pray for thy souls, And I thought like the ship is not going under. It's like what an amazing way to like reassure your investors that like nothing is wrong by like praying the moment that your ship goes under by saying that it doesn't go under. It's like, what's happening here? By the way, I pinned it up at the top. The end of Intel is nigh.
Yeah, it's I did make a post about it. Basically, apparently, the reason that MacBooks were so expensive was because Apple was literally fixing Intel's shit for everyone else. So Apple was the single largest company that was issuing reports of issues with Intel chips. So they were and that's the primary reason why they switched over to the ARM chips, because they were so sick of Intel's bullshit with their chips that they decided we're going to switch over our fucking Macs to another architecture, completely new architecture. But yeah, Intel would lose that money from the CHIPS Act, and unironically would benefit TSMC more than anyone else.
So I want to just show like Britney Spears has the.
So like, you're not building subsidizing it. Like, let it die and let something. You know what? If TSMC wants to build here and they want to employ Americans, and let them. Like, I think it's the market. It's the perennial gale of creative destruction, and we've got to let. Even though Intel's a giant, right, of American industry, but clearly it's not the best anymore, and we need to just win the future. We just need the best.
the shaking hands for, with everyone was interesting. I think RFK would definitely feel, very uncomfortable, right?
Yeah. The main turns. I'm making a clip right now on the Chips Act thing.
Yeah, I think another sort of development that we're going to see from this speech, hearing the president talk about a lot of the culture war issues that we've had over the last couple of years, the transgender stuff, the culture war stuff, all of that jazz. I was just in Europe. I go to London probably about once a month. And I was just there last month giving a talk to a room full of people about, how to reform UK free speech law. And what? And I said in the talk, I looked at this crowd of people, probably 125, 150 people, and I said to them, now imagine like you're here, right, in the UK, and you say something like you're opposing immigration, or you reject the idea that men can turn into women, right? Really basic statement like that, and like everyone in the room sat up and like in their seats, like afraid that someone had actually said something like that. And Trump just went up and said a bunch of stuff like that on the biggest stage, right? So I wonder if that's going to kind of shake, like the U.S. obviously is on its way out of the woke madness that we've had to deal with since 2014 or so, and that spell is starting to get broken in various different places at various different speeds. But I wonder if Europe's going to get shaken out of its slumber by seeing someone just very openly, criticize, right, all of these ideas, which still have a lot of currency over there, even though they don't have a lot of currency here in the U.S.
Hope so. That'd be nice if they change the ways over there. He's like, wokeness is trouble, wokeness is bad. It's gone. I love that.
Yeah, the preference cascade has not started in Europe. It's just starting. Like, I think they'll be where we are maybe in 2 or 3 years. But you're just finally getting people brave enough to say something is wrong about everything that's happened. Like, why have we got this weird, poisonous foreign ideology, telling us that everything we used to think about ourselves is totally backwards and wrong. So we'll see what happens. But they've still got a ways to go over in the UK.
Yeah, I hope they figure out this Ukraine shit as well. Zelensky looks like he's kind of caved.
Zelensky is absolutely cooked. I mean, if you have to somehow mobilize all of the European politicians to like repeat a simple message multiple times over, and you repeat the same message also, it's like you're just doing reinforcement, but you're trying to pair it with hyperstition, but you don't understand that has to be an organic meme and not a force thing. So that might be a bit of an issue there. So it's like if you have to do that to remain relevant, that's kind of, I don't know, man. But maybe that's just me. What do I know? I'm just a guy with like a spaceman PFP on XCOM.
Maybe we kind of realize that Europeans are terrible fucking allies to the US.
I mean, bruh, you have like more than 50% of the total defense expenditure via NATO is coming from the US. Like,
50%.
And what are they giving in return? This is a very good question to ask.
50% is doing a disservice to it. It's like 70 or 80% or some shit.
Oh yeah. And this is like all of Europe. It's basically one country funding an entire continent's defense.
Not just that, the US is also paying for the cheap healthcare that Europe has as well.
This is, by the way, the only reason why you actually get the healthcare that they keep bragging about. It's because the US is not getting it. Imagine if like the US were to apply it to itself instead. Ooh.
Yeah. The US is effectively making Europe's healthcare plan cheaper. On top of that, the Europeans don't have to pay for their fucking defense, and they haven't for years, right? So they've had all this time to invest in their welfare system. Well, I wouldn't even call it invest. Waste money on their welfare system.
Europe's thing is that they have spent all of the money that they should have been spending on investment, and not necessarily like as government investment, but just like staying the fuck out of the way of private enterprise so that it can make investment. And they have blown it all on consumption, and consumption of the worst type. It's consumption on inefficient systems where you overstaff them, you overpay, you're allocating resources in the absolute least efficient manner possible, and you're not doing anything to protect yourself or be independent from a foreign policy standpoint. And like, I think we're going to get free healthcare, and I think we're going to get it because of AI. So like, I think that's
It's a bit like Venezuela, right? They had like all this time where their entire system was dependent on them making money from oil, and then they didn't invest it into anything useful. It was just social services, and then when the price of oil crashed, their entire country went to shit.
Yep. And like all of Europe's the same way. The North Sea oil in Britain, right? Norway turned around and put it into a sovereign wealth fund, all of their oil revenues and gas revenues. Britain took it and they spent it on the fucking NHS, right? So like, it's just, they've done the absolute, and the thing about NATO, which is even crazier. Forget the like, amount that you spend. That's one thing, right? If you then look at the shit that some of these countries have said in the last week and a half, and then you compare it to like what they actually have in terms of boots on the ground. Ireland, prime example, neutral country notionally, but they go after their foreign minister says after Donald Trump's disgraceful treatment of Ukraine. You know, we stand with Ukraine. And then you look at the numbers and you go, well, gee, I wonder how many men are in the Irish armed forces. And the answer is about 5,000. So they have less than like a brigade combat team. And this is across all three services. They maybe have one brigade combat team. If you assume that every single one of those people is
A brigade combat team? How many people are in a battalion or in a regiment?
And loans that Ukraine is going to have to pay back.
Yeah, it's wild how
they don't have any backbone. There's no generosity. It's, we'll give you this money, you pay it to us back, but the U.S. is giving it fucking financial support for free.
Yeah, we got grifted.
The Europeans are like, some people in Europe get it. Like Mario Draghi understands that like if they don't wake up from the slumber they're in, like and start really radically changing the way that they do things, Europe is over, right? It's finished. It's not coming back. You know, they're not reproducing, they're not having children, they're not building anything, they don't have an economy, they don't have any internet businesses, they don't have any AI businesses, they don't have any electricity, they don't have any energy, they don't have any weapons, they don't have a space program, right? The closest thing Europe comes to a space program is like a fucking quadruple shot espresso. Like that's it. Like that's the closest they're gonna get to the moon. They don't have a crypto industry. They don't have anything, right? And like it's like I just wonder how the hell like this continent, which like produced every great musician, every great philosopher, every great invention until the United States came and ate their lunch. Suddenly, like it's just a bunch of people going, man, we couldn't possibly like build anything or like have a nuclear power station or like or invent anything or have any businesses. So like the scale of change that you're at least here in the U.S. we've managed to break through. Like we've got an electoral system. One of the parties, the GOP, got hijacked by like this techno-futurist and like this techno-futurist and nationalist sort of pro-labor coalition that was like cobbled together from Democrats and Republicans and Libertarians and everyone in between, and somehow, by some miracle, managed to seize power under circumstances where the leader of that group had like survived 2 attempted assassinations, and they tried to throw him in jail, so he gives no fucks and wants to burn it all down. Like I don't know how Europe does that because there are so many different layers of bureaucracy in so many different places. But like they need to do exactly what we're doing. It's just so depressing. Because they nothing. You look at it and you just want to shake them like really, really hard and say, "Wake up! Like, don't you understand? You're getting lapped by the United States. You're getting lapped by China, and you're getting thumped by Russia, which has the GDP of Italy."
If you do win, the courts will just cancel the election.
Right, and if you win, the courts will cancel the election, and then they will put you under a gag order when you run again and you're the leading candidate.
you guys hear about Zelensky calling JD Suka? I think I heard this clip.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he called him Suga. I think he was probably swearing under his breath, Suga.
Imagine the context of the situation, yeah.
Yeah, like imagine you're Zelensky and like you walk into the Oval Office, you've got the media of the world, and then you start getting chewed out by Donald Trump and JD Vance. Like you're gonna say motherfucker under your breath.
Yeah, right.
It's like I would. So yeah, I don't know. I think, but like, and yeah, I don't know. It needed to happen.
I think he should have seen it coming, though. He should have read the room.
Well, apparently he had a deal, and he rugged them. So basically, they tried to reach this minerals deal 3 times. He kept saying, well, no, I want security guarantees. And the U.S. was like, well, no, this is not how this works. We're going to fund your redevelopment. You're going to sell us minerals. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have a forward presence there. And if you want security guarantees, maybe you should talk to the Germans, right, and the Poles, because they're right there. Or the Lithuanians, all 5 of them, because they're right there. And so apparently they wanted the U.S. to come in and do security guarantees and didn't want to do a peace deal with Russia because they maintained this fantasy that they're going to be able to reclaim all of the territories that they've lost, which just isn't realistic unless the U.S. gets directly involved, which we're not going to do because it would start World War III. So, apparently what happened was there was a deal, it got rugged. He then started asking, and the deal was like, okay, we're going to sign the minerals deal, and then we're going to do the peace deal after that. And then when he said to JD, well, you think you can do diplomacy with this man, Putin? That was basically him.
He nuked the room. He didn't nuke it, actually dropped out.
Fucking crashes, bruh. I do so very much dislike the technical failures. That is not nice, bruh. Okay, let's bring back everybody. It's not so much connectivity issues as it was just, by the way, we're gonna stop working now. Huh? It just happens. It's unpredictable. It is almost effectively random. It just happens. And you're just kind of stuck there going like, the fuck? That's the current issue here. That was like, what just happened? Let's bring up the other guys.
Is that funny? Because he's on cellular, but I'm on Verizon
The app may be
or
miles better
AT&T.
on iOS. It is still massive.
My X accounts don't go down, but his goes down. He's the fucking CEO of X, and my shit on AT&T doesn't go down, but shit on his cell, and he's probably using Starlink, goes down, which is so funny. It's a Starlink issue. It's not even an X issue. It's fucking Starlink. Isn't that hilarious?
Unmute yourself when you're like.
He doesn't even bring it up though. He doesn't want to mention it.
Okay. There we go.
Or he's on cellular, whatever cellular he's using.
Just post the space, join the conversation.
Alright, everybody, I'm going to the gym while these fat fucking pieces of shit do their social media bullshit all night long. I do it all day long, so now I get to take a break. I just hope my shit don't crash so I can capture it all. Let's pray.
I think Europe has gotten really big.
Yeah.
gotta wonder what, like, there's gotta be a formula for shaking them out of it. Someone out there knows how America just managed to break free of whatever woke spell.
No, I don't. I think you're making a mistake here. What's happening in Europe is not replicatable in the U.S., and what's happening in the U.S. is not replicatable in Europe. Right? It's like all those fucking retards that are like, oh yeah, just take the Europe's public transportation system and put it in the U.S. It won't work in the fucking U.S. because Europe and the U.S. are different fucking places. They have different laws. There's all these people in the middle that own land, and the U.S. can't confiscate that land to build the fucking trains. Whereas in France, for example, most of it is empty space. It's owned by the government, so they can build those fucking trains whenever they want. It's not. If you've ever lived in Europe, it won't work. It's impossible, right? Especially in a country like the UK. Right? Let's say you have a Donald Trump in the UK. How the fuck are they gonna win? Right? They can't just become popular and win. You need to be specifically elected by the parties in power to become the prime minister. Meaning you're gonna have to be popular enough to win enough seats to create your own party from scratch and win, like what Nigel Farage is doing. Right? But that should take seconds.
Right, but I was just gonna say there is one person in England who has managed to do that, and that's Nigel Farage.
Yeah, it hasn't been successful. How many years has he been doing this?
15.
Trump. Exactly. Trump just got in. He won. He was president for 4 years. Then he lost. Then he basically managed to take over the entire Republican Party.
Trump is the avatar of a movement that's about 15 or 17 years old, right? So you have there were the first seeds of what we see in Trump now. Were started by guys like Andrew Breitbart, who died 13 years ago. Guys like Curtis Yarvin, who was writing in 2008, and Yarvin saw in particular, he saw that all of the woke stuff, he saw it coming in 2008. Right, he knew where we were going, and he understood what was going to happen, and he also understood what needed to happen in order to get rid of it, in order to end it. Which is a lot of and what we're seeing with the blueprint now, where you go in and you defund a lot of stuff, is very similar to what we saw from his writings. So I think there were people, the movements that Nigel Farage leads in the UK is very much that started at the same time as the movement that led to Donald Trump here in the U.S., even though there's slightly different pathways, right? So Nigel Farage has been the figurehead of that movement in the UK really consistently since I think about 2009, 2008. I think I first saw him speaking in 2010 at an event in South London, and he was nothing. I think he was just might not even have been an MP at that time.
I don't agree with you for one reason. The UK is a first past the post system. Right? Meaning, as long as Nigel Farage is putting up the votes between conservatives and the Tories and his party, all he's gonna do is he's gonna give. Why am I forgetting the other party's name? The one that's in power, Labour. Labour. He's gonna be giving Labour even more power. Right? Labour's just going to keep winning and winning and winning as long as all he's doing is putting up the votes for the conservatives.
I wonder if you need. So my thesis about the UK is that Labour is going to so run the country into the ground, and which they're doing through tax policy and other things, that potentially what happens is that is what gives Reform their opening. And if you just had the two-party system, or three-party system if you count the Lib Dems, with Labour, right? If you just had Labour and the Conservatives, there might be a chance that the Conservatives would flip it back and kind of arrest the decline somewhat. But Labour is so nuts, right? And they're so insane that the UK is losing enough millionaires every year that it's losing the equivalent of the tax revenues of a major UK city like Bristol every single year. A city of 500,000 people disappears because they're so bitter and they so dislike their millionaires that people are like, you know what, we're going to go somewhere else. We're going to go to Dubai. So, like, I think Labor could screw things up so badly that you actually create an opening for someone like Farage.
In a place like the UK, you don't need to win a majority, and you don't even need to win that significant of the population. That's significant of the population. You just need to win more than all the other parties. Which, if it's split up between different parties, you're not.
You need a majority. So you need a majority of the seats. And once you have a majority of the
but
seats,
I'm talking about with the number of people that are voting, with the people that are actually voting. Right?
Oh yeah.
Labor, I think, won like 30-something% of the vote, and they got 60-something% of the seats.
Yeah, because
that happens. Yeah, that happens because of the first past the post system.
Right, but right now Labor's in third. So I think that's it. Hey, what's going on?
I want to add to this quickly. Hey Blaze, hey Adrian, Otto, haven't seen you guys in a while. I've been kind of staying away from Spaces, but where's Scott? it's a good question. Maybe I followed his path and got off Spaces for a while there too. Preston, Otto too. There's another thing, another variable to what you guys are saying. The reason Nigel Farage has a more difficult time is because he has to have the party behind him, right? So when Trump first won, if the party was supposed to elect its leader, I highly doubt the Republicans would have all voted to have Trump come in, because he did win the nomination, but because of the people, not the Republican congressman, right? So having a parliamentary system, it kind of creates a very different dynamic. Canada has a parliamentary system as well, and so forth. So with the U.S. presidency that's separate from Congress, I think that gives an advantage to technically an independent, right? Because Trump was never in politics and came in and won the presidency. So he's technically an independent that aligned himself with the Republicans. So
yeah, that's a major difference. Trump could have theoretically run as an independent and won, but that type of shit would have never happened in the UK.
Yeah, there's no ability to do. You have to have the party's backing, right? You have to have the party.
I'm pretty sure in 2024, if he had run as an independent, he probably would have won. But the reason that he aligned himself with the Republicans was because he needed those seats in Congress.
The thing with the UK, if you can pull it off, if you can win, then what you can do, because it's a parliament, it's effectively a dictatorship of a parliamentary majority. If you can pull it off and win, once you're in charge, you can do whatever the hell you need to do. The courts won't stop you, and Congress won't stop you. So if you can convince people that you need, and I think the U.S., the proof will be in the pudding. I think the U.S. is going to be the most spectacular example of a Javier Milei-style reformation of the government. And when the rest of the world sees, hey, you know what, we want that for us. Look how successful they are. Look how well they're doing. I think if you can capture that lightning in the bottle, right, and you can have a political party that says, we want that for us, and the rest of the world can be convinced that this is something that they want, then a system like the UK, you could have a huge amount of reform, pun intended, very, very quickly, simply because you can pass an act of parliament saying, hey, you now have the prime minister now has a mandate to do whatever the hell he needs to reform the civil service, and he can by executive fiat, right? Exercising the royal prerogative, and you could do it. So once that's the advantage of the UK system, is that if you need quick reform, as long as you can get the consensus to do it for a very short space of time, once you've got it, you can like lightning, you can just tear through the system and rebuild it from scratch.
Also, Preston, you might want to turn on voice isolation.
I don't know how to do that.
Actually, it might be Adrian that needs to turn that on.
I think it's Adrian.
It's Adrian's background.
Adrian needs to turn on voice isolation, yeah.
All better now?
Yeah, it looks like it's,
Yeah, it's better.
So what do you guys think? I don't know Adrian's title. We so back.
Amazing. The answer is amazing.
It was very good address. They put a lot of people in their place. The Democrats, as usual, decided to go apeshit for no reason. One of which was then subsequently expelled, which is hilarious, by the way. I knew that was going to happen, by the way, because this dude just like rose up and started doing that shit. I'm like, dude, you know what'd be funny? This guy's probably going to get expelled real soon. Like, if he keeps doing that shit, it's going to be like a second strike, and then he's going to be out. And that's exactly what happened. So that was wild. Kind of funny. And then, like, you could see the unity, or like, you could see the division and the unity simultaneously, while everybody else on the Republican side was unified. The other side was also unified, but divided from the side that actually was happy and cheering for a greater age. So in a sense, this is funny because the Democrats themselves, they campaigned on what was already kind of an affront to what the United States of America actually is. Because they keep saying these weird phrases like, you know, it's a threat to our democracy, our democracy, our democracy, our democracy. When in actuality, what they don't understand, which is ironic to have a foreigner tell them this, is that America is actually not a democracy. It is a constitutional republic. If it were a democracy, it turned into a fucking dictatorship, but it is not a democracy. It is a constitutional republic. So it's kind of funny that, you know, they roll with the it's a threat to our democracy thing, when in fact a threat to their quote-unquote democracy, which is not even real democracy, because there is no subjective opinion to democracy in the sense, other than the objective assessment of a large group of people, which is also very risky. This is then the thing which was kind of an affront to the very nature of the country itself and what it was founded on. So it's kind of interesting to see what that looks like, especially expressed within the context of, say, you know, people are celebrating the coming of a golden age, and these guys are sitting there seething like hell.
Democracy is literally just mob rule.
Yes, it's disguised as something else.
Apparently, this is the longest address of the, I think, in the presidential history. I think the second rank goes to President Bill Clinton.
And not a single moment of it was boring. It was like extremely entertaining. You could like watch every single minute of it. He definitely knows how to put on a show. I'll give him that. It was wild.
Yeah, he's super funny too.
Yeah.
I think one of the main
big timing.
I think it's always been entertaining to like watch what he's been doing, and I think he's become extremely well. How to explain this? He's become more polished in a sense. I think. You know, if you look at say speeches from 2016 and 24, they are quite different to what he's doing today. Today it looks much more polished and has a much more direct approach. You know, though it still keeps like the old flair, the comedic flair, it actually makes it much more consequential and not as how do I say, untamed rather. You can tell that there's a storm behind there, but really it gives an aura of something more tamed than before, which is really cool. And I think many people can actually sense that.
More confidence and everything. Yeah, it's very nice. And it turns out we just need a new president to
That was fucking funny, yeah. It's hilarious to have like seen this. So in 2016, I still remember like when 2016 happened, and I was a little kid at the time, and I was reading the newspaper. And when I did, I was like, dude, this is gonna be a very entertaining run for like the world to see something like this succeed, because he's just an affront to all the weird order that has existed for quite a long period of time. And he's like disrupting things. I'm like, this could be very interesting. This could be very entertaining, purely from a disruptive perspective. And of course, he goes in, he does a little bit of disruption. Doesn't have his best term, but that has a term. And then you get like 4 years of absolute disaster on all fronts. And then you have a bit of a comeback in the form of this. And you can already see that this is a very different approach. And I think all the stuff that has happened to him, all the strange attacks from various angles, was actually a good thing, because now you can actually see where the threats are, and you can surgically take each and every single one of them out, and that you could just basically separate yourself from them, you know? And you look at something like Europe as well. I mean, they're like kind of an affront to everything that the United States stands for, and yet they demand aid from the United States. And return what? In return for like what? And then like it's funny because they have like this weird moral superiority complex, which is just basically inferiority trying to cope with itself, where they say, oh wow, you know, we're somehow better than you. It's like, how's that work? You know, and then they have this like this problem where they say Americans cannot criticize Europe, but at the same time they are the people. Europe is criticizing America. What is this hypocrisy? You know that's like gonna undo you at some point, right?
Yeah, and they literally take we think we're better than you and change the whole accent. Like the British accent is newer than the American accent, right? So the American accent is the same British accent of 200-300 years ago. So
I mean, it
until
has
then,
changed. It has changed a fair bit. The American
Well,
accent
sure,
is a hybrid of the somewhat German, Irish,
bit of French,
kind of like
yeah.
Yeah, it has this very interesting aspect. The most recognizable aspects are actually Irish in nature. You can tell. So if you ever hear a person from Ireland speak, they have like this thing. Like when I say Ireland, that part, they have that part that comes out of them when they speak. That part is very pronounced when you speak to like an Irish person. And if you like take that and try to introduce the British accent, a little bit of Germanic stuff in there, then eventually out comes like this very interesting accent that then basically is American. You know, and then of course you have the much more of that pronounced in the South, where more of the rednecks were at. You know, the original settlers, they called them rednecks because they went to the South where a lot of sun is, and they're like, people from the very far north of the European parts, and so they come down there where all the sun is, and then they get sunburnt, and that's why they were called rednecks, because their necks were literally red. So then of course you have a little bit of a different thing there. The North was a little bit more advanced, and blah 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 blah, whatever else that's kind of feeds into like a long expanded history where then eventually had like massive chaos meltdown on a social level, which then led into like the situations of the 60s, and like the falling apart of that later on into like the organizations that then formed and caused massive amounts of destruction on the nutritional and social level. But that's besides the point. That's like a longer history that still needs to be like explained.
Yeah, and I agree with all that. And what I meant is the British, was it the 19th century? The aristocrats decided to distinguish themselves and speak differently, and the modern British accent got developed then. So the settlers that came.
Yeah, they dropped the R. They dropped the rhotic R.
Yes.
So basically,
And
the hard R became the like that, and then Victorian English cleaved off from. Because like basically, we sound like the Americans with the hard R sound like Cornish farmers from like the 1600s.
Yes.
Yeah, and they lifted their tongue to the top as well. Yeah, it's kind of funny. So the Shakespearean accent is technically, some argue it's closer to American accent than British accent.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, man. It literally sounds like an American trying to imitate a British accent. Like that's what the weird, what is it? They call it the Atlantic or whatever. Transatlantic. Sorry, like call it transatlantic.
Mid-Atlantic is what happens when you get an American who moves over there and then picks up the language. It sounds a bit funny.
Yes, that's that is true. Yes, it sounds a little bit funny.
French in Quebec also sounds like what French sounded like 100 years ago or something.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Some French and some Quebecois, they have trouble understanding themselves each other if they speak very quickly, and then they get upset of who's speaking the real French.
So they have like they have a somewhat internal external identity crisis thing where like nobody can verify the hash. That's funny.
Yeah, it's like in Quebec, the stop signs actually say that in France, the stop signs say stop. So it's like, yeah, there's differences there.
It's a good thing that my tap water is a different supply line. I can drink straight from it. Oh. I can like take on a huge amount of water in like one gulp. I used to like take care of horses, you know what we used to do? With like the garden hose, we would just like put the thing in like the horse's mouth as if it was a large straw and bro was straight up fucking like gulping for 30 seconds. I'm like, this is fucking insane. Bro's getting like injected with water. You could see his shit expanding. It was crazy. They loved it. They fucking were addicted to that shit. It's great. That and salt. But if you ever like deal with horses or any of those types of animals, understand that salt is the horse equivalent of cocaine. That's the best. It's funny though, but it's actually the truth. They will become addicted to this shit, and it's okay if you can manage it well, because they actually need the salt, because it keeps sweating the salt out. As a matter of fact, if you ever like dealt with horses that sweat a lot, the salt actually accumulates in the fur, and you have like a powder that comes off of the horse. That's just the crystallized salt. It's drying off because horses are one of those animals that actually have the capability of sweating, which is really unique because most animals actually don't really have that. But they can do what we do, which is sweating, which is really, really cool. So yeah, just thought I'd bring that up for like randomly because I just like did the same thing that the horse did, but like to my water tap. Yeah.
I just posted the thing about the TSMC CHIPS Act thing that Trump talked about. So there's another clip of that out there now.
Nice. The community is getting filled with good content from Lies here. Yeah. By the way, if you don't know, join the community over there. That's the thing. And you can see content that some of our creators post. Mainly, of course, Blasey does a lot of the clipping, which is very nice. So it's really cool. It's really nice. Catch things that have happened there. Or sometimes you have an occasional Spaces clip that comes in from either him or one of our people. Rex Spaces has his own websites that do it for him. It's he's automating things. And he's actually building some very interesting audio controls, which you will be privy to at some point. We're gonna test them out, and we're gonna see how well it works. But we're gonna have next level ability for media control in the Spaces soon because of his input. So that's gonna be very interesting. I can't wait until I get to try that one out. But yeah, man, awesome stuff. I should do an alt account hosting thing for the Miladies. I love the alt account Spaces. It's a good vibe.
I don't know what a milady is, and at this point, I'm too afraid to ask.
It's a PFP. It's a PFP profile picture on Twitter, which is associated with an NFT token.
It's not even associated with an NFT token. It's actually a lot more than that. Now, it is coincidentally also a collection, but basically it has escaped the nature of what the collection is and just at some point become its own meme, or a digital network spirituality thing just emerged around it. So they basically took the thing that's the network state die-off of disgusting fucking useless shitcoins and shit, and escaped that and became a thing that has actually utility, which is just memes itself. And it's a thing that is a consistent meme filter rather, or a template that then can filter current events through it, and then basically you can have a telling of a story that not even algorithms understand, and the only thing that sorts it is the human brain, and so then you literally get network spirituality, and that's what that is. So the basics of explaining it like an NFT collection is when the outside is not inside looking at it, but I'm so deep inside understanding what it is to the outside that I can actually tell you all this stuff, which makes sense this way. It doesn't make sense, but it also makes sense at the same time. You just kind of have to vibe with it to understand it properly, but yes, do you want one?
Yeah,
you're not gonna own one, but you're just gonna look like one. And it's nice for an alt.
So I can generate one, right?
Yes, you're gonna make one. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to do that.
It's funny. I have one for an alt account. It just looks funny. It's hilarious because we had the interesting Nick Fuentes Charlotte fan crossover because the two of them were beefing on the timeline. So I said we're gonna turn that into a triangle and we're gonna insert the Adrian Dittman and just resolve the conflict. And then so everybody wins, which is exactly what happened. Everybody won. It was one of those spaces where everybody won. I got the two to talk. They didn't eviscerate each other. We were there. I was doing the thing. Everything was going very, very well. Everybody won. Everybody walked away feeling like they won, which they did. And for a moment in time, and long after, there's peace in the network. Because you don't see that drama pop up again, do you? Cool, huh? That's how you resolve the conflict. It's we're seeing the nuclear fission thing happening, so now we're just gonna insert the control rods and feel hey, by the way, this thing has to bounce over there. Yeah. It's pretty good.
Nice.
We be solving problems, So what did I get in return out of all of this? A meme and an alt and understanding of weird things and network stuff. So that's cool. Although I did have the network stuff before, that allows me to understand all this bullshit. But yeah, makes sense out of it and turns it from the chaotic observer state into the thing that actually makes sense, which is super structured maths almost. You can look at these things which are networks and data that's unsorted in them as if it was some sort of primordial energy thing, and you're just waiting for things to decay enough so you can actually structure them into a lattice. And then you have this weird atomic thing that's not even an atom, but it's just a bunch of connections that are 8-dimensional things that are just triangles and circles and shit and orbs. Does any of this make sense, or is this going over everyone?
I was watching a video clip earlier today where Neil deGrasse Tyson was talking about chimps to humans is kind of smart aliens to humans in terms of levels of understanding. So I feel like the chimp in that equation So I'm gonna noodle on it and like try to understand. Like I'll just noodle on it, but I don't think I understand. But I hope one day to actually understand.
Neil deGrasse Tyson kind of embodies that because what he does is he like tries to be alien level in his understanding, but is only recounting the aliens' explanations and is like putting it out there via different metaphors. That's like Neil deGrasse Tyson's contribution. Other than that, he's actually very good. So he believes that you can kiss yourself in the mirror, and I'm like, there is no self in the mirror to kiss. Physically, that's impossible. You'd understand this if you have basic knowledge of fucking physics. I'm like, you cannot loop around and kiss yourself because there's nothing there to kiss. There's only glass.
Yeah, but he wants to kiss himself because he's a narcissist.
Instead of just like take yourself. We're gonna put you in a hibernation chamber. Wait like 100 years. We're gonna have fucking clothes. You can kiss yourself. We can make that fucking happen. Unless you want to like do the sex bot AI thing, that's gonna happen in probably 20 years. Okay. Like if you're down to wait that long, you know we can have a thing. We can scan you now. And you can like do the thing with your younger self if that's what you're into. But like, dude, man, calm down, man. Don't start kissing with glass, bro.
But
it's not gonna steal you back.
You think it'll take 20 years? Sex bot AI? I don't think it'll take 20 for that. I think it'll take more like 5.
As opposed to Neil deGrasse Tyson, Carl Sagan, specifically the bit from Cosmos where he's talking about fourth dimensional space, I think is worth watching in relation to this conversation. And when you start to think about some of the more esoteric applications of geometry to some of the things that we're talking about, it kind of helps it make sense.
Absolutely.
I really struggled with understand. I still struggle. Like I have tried many times. Like get the fourth dimension. Like to understand.
Okay. Like, take everything you know about geometry and throw it out the window and draw. Do you have a piece of paper?
I can get one in about 2 seconds. Sure.
Get a piece of paper and get a pen or a pencil, whatever you want.
We're walking over to the desk. We're clearing the desk off, and I'm going to draw. Hold on, I'm gonna get the printer.
It's really difficult to describe this like from a non-visual perspective. But what I want you to do is I want you to put like I assume you have an A4 paper. Place it down, and you do so that's like linear, like oriented, and then in a landscape aspect ratio in front of you. And so now I want you to draw a line, basically just like from the top to the like so you look at it and you just go to the top corner in this general direction. You take a line and you draw it down a little bit. Doesn't have to be too long, just like one line, however long you want to make it.
What corner or the middle?
Doesn't matter. Just draw a line from top to bottom.
Okay. I bisected it in half. Landscape orientation right down the middle.
Yeah, don't have to like draw it all the way, but just like draw a little bit of a line. And then draw another line connected to that, but like towards the right at a 90-degree angle.
Yep.
Then draw a line. See like the connection point right there. Draw a line to the left outside of that, but at a larger angle. Okay. And so now you got a cube visualization thing. I want you to imagine.
Got 3 axes.
Yeah. So that's a cube now. Kind of like you can make a cube out of this. What I want you to do is I want you to imagine that inside of a cube there's space. Now you can, with, say, coordinates, describe where there's an object in space. But what you can't do with this on a static piece of paper is movement. So when I was a kid, this is how I made sense of it, because I just randomly came to the conclusion that there had to have been a fourth dimension. There has to be a fourth dimension, because otherwise movement in space were not possible. Because it had to be a dimension of its own. So now I want you to take like the little convergence point that you've like basically created, which is like the corner of the cube. I want you to put the pen right there in the middle and lift it up. That's the fourth dimension.
Got it.
The very movement is the fourth dimension.
Got it.
3D is stuff in space. 4D is the movement of that stuff in space and the decay of energy.
Got it.
So, Adrian, that's one way of looking at it. Definitely helps. I think Carl Sagan did that as well, but he did the other way. He's like, hey, the tesseract would make the shadow exactly how you described the cube. Preston, another way of looking at it is, if you think about it, imagine a cube, and imagine that cube is like LEDs, and it changes in time, right, the colors. And you imagine that as you look at it, it changes in colors, but now imagine instead of time passing, you're able to somehow move it and the colors change. But the question is not because it's like LEDs are changing color, but now the cube is actually shifting as you move it back and forth, right? But you're moving it into the fourth dimension or not. So it's like you can access different states of the same exact cube. It's not going to be a square. It's not a rectangle. The actual cube will change and morph colors depending on how you move it in the fourth dimension. Best way to visualize it is time and an LED back and forth.
Or you just basically draw a bunch of lines on a piece of paper and lift your pen up.
Oh yeah, or that. But
I mean, it just makes more sense, right?
Yeah, you know what's funny? We don't see 3D. We actually see 2Ds. We see
the remnants of stuff. Like the remnants give us an understanding. We basically just observe the decay of energy, and we're like part of it. And the reason why we know that things are happening is because we are happening as well. Right, so we can't observe anything, but yeah, it's true. All you see is 2D because you have to imagine that the sensor that's at the back of your eyes, best way to describe it is a fucking sensor, because otherwise it's too complex. It's a sensor that's at the back of your eyes. You have two of those. That's why they have like that weird stereoscopic vision thing. But you're able to see like an object from at a slight angle from two sides at the same time, but not as much, so it still technically appears as flat. That's why you can have an optical illusion thing. So you ever wonder why optical illusions that are technically quote-unquote 3D on a flat piece of paper work on humans? It's because the humans don't see 3D. If you could see 3D, those optical illusions would not work on you. Because you're not seeing it, you are imagining it, because you remember it. It's like a still image that exists in your brain. The only reason why you know that time exists is because you remember.
Exactly, and
you're just imprisoned in the moment, and you're like in the moment of decay. So you're like a window that's stuck in time, and like is like time's passing through you. And that's why you like notice the decay of energy, because like you're not actually moving through time. You're just sitting in place faster as it moves through you. You're the chain link fence, and time is a snake. But it's like actually a hyperdimensional fractal thing. That's like mining for information.
I love all these tangents. There's so many different ideas. Hold on, Adrian. Back to one point you said, just wanted to tie it into the piece of paper. If you draw a square on a piece of paper, you're seeing 2D because you can see what's inside the square, right? If you're in a 2D world, you'll see 1D. You cannot look past the lines of the square.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're seeing actual 2D because you see it from the third dimension. So we aren't actually able to see 3D. We see 2D perspectives of a 3D world. In order for us to see inside 3D, we'll be able to physically look inside every single object simply because we're outside of it.
Imagine basically X-ray vision. Yeah, just imagine it's like X-ray vision, but actually cool because X-ray vision is not possible. Technically, Superman's vision is like actual 3D vision. It's not actually radiation because you cannot like do radiation like that. That's not how it works. X-ray is capturing what's behind the thing. So you basically, if you wanted to be Superman, what you'd have to do is shoot shit from your eyes, run fast to the other side of that, faster than the rays can go, which basically would mean that you'd have to travel faster than light itself, which is bullshit. Then stand on the other end of that, and then receive that shit in your eyes. At that point, why didn't you just like go ahead and through the wall? You know? You wouldn't have to like know these things.
Well,
also,
yeah, but you're raising
you
the
would give
discussion
every
of light.
single person you're doing X-ray vision to cancer.
Yes, there was like a little Family Guy skit with Superman, where basically for some reason all of the women in his office had breast cancer, and then basically the doctor said that it was as if they got, an X-ray every day for the past like 10, 20 years, like for hours on end. I think nobody really got that, but
Yeah, it was pretty funny.
It's messed up, isn't it? It's so fucked up.
I'm surprised none of them got vaginal cancer.
Oh, well, he's not into that, it seems. He's into
Anyways,
like,
guys, I'm gonna drop this. It's been fun. I just wanted to pop in for a bit. I'm like heads down working on something. But I'll see you guys around. Adrian, Blythe, thanks for having me as always.
See you, man. Bye-bye.
And Freckles, Preston, nice to meet you. Raj, Lori, Kat, good to see you. Alright, see you guys.
See you, dude.
See you, bye. Awesome. Also, another way to like visualize higher dimensions is to basically use your imagination of what your understanding of book is. You know, it's like, what is a book? It's like this binder full of pages. And that's like 3D also, if you wanted to look at it from a substantial level. It's like infinite amount of 2D stacked up on top of each other. That's like what 3D actually is. You have like the pages which you could like visualize as being perfectly flat, even though they have mass, which makes them inherently 3D. But you can like stack them on top of each other for the sake of the metaphor, create a book, and that's an actual 3D object. The same thing also with the lines, because the actual 2D, which is funny, because the actual 2D plane thing is like infinite lines stacked next to each other. You know, like placed next to each other, right? Just kind of in parallel. And the line things become 2D page things that you can then put on top of each other, which then become like book things, you know? Or cube things if you wanted to like have a big batch of sticky notes like the people used to do in like the 90s and such. They have like this big fucking block of sticky notes, which are like the world's biggest security threat because everybody kept writing their fucking passwords and usernames on those things and put them on the fucking computer right there for everybody to see in the goddamn hospital, you know? All that kind of weird shit. The amount of times I've seen that is actually insane.
What would 5D look like?
It wouldn't really look